Thank you, Jonathan. Good morning, members, officers, any members of the public who are viewing the live stream this morning. Welcome to this meeting of the Grants Authority Committee. This meeting has been live streamed out to the public, so anyone present in this room essentially gives their consent to be recorded. I'm Councillor Jose Hales. I'm the chair of this committee. For information for the members of the public, the role of our committee is to consider and make recommendations to the lead cabinet member for finance, which is Councillor John Williams, who's online, for him to make a decision taking into account our recommendations. So we go back to the agenda. So agenda item 1 is apologies. Kira, do you have any apologies?
We do, from Councillor Judith Ripper.
And she's been subbed by Sunita Hadraj.
Yep.
Hadraj, sorry.
That's right.
Thank you. In that case, then I can confirm we're quorate. Officers, may I ask you to unmute and introduce yourselves, please, starting off with Siobhan, if I may, because that's the way the screen goes up over here.
Good morning, members. I'm Siobhan Mellon. I am Climate and Environment Development Officer.
Thank you. Luke?
Hi, I'm Luke Waddington. I'm a Project Officer in the Climate and Environment team.
Cecilia?
Good morning, I'm Cecilia and I work for the Communities and team as a Development Officer.
And Emma?
Hello, I'm Emma Dyer. I'm a Development Officer in the Communities team.
Jonathan, would you like to be introduced to the world?
Yeah. Thank you, Chair. I'm Jonathan. I'm the Cabinet Support Officer and I'll be live streaming this meeting.
Thank you.
I'm Kieran By from Dem Services and I'll be minuting this meeting.
Thank you. And as I said, this Councillor John Williams is online. John, would you introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm Councillor John Williams. I'm the lead cabinet member for finance and resources.
Thank you very much. Members in the room, anyone got any declarations of interest with any items on this agenda or anything else they feel prudent? Councillor Ellington.
I'd like to just record that I've had conversations and working with the people that run Shed It in Swavesey.
Thank you. Anybody else? I believe we've got these shared services now. There's no shared services with regards to the mobile warden schemes, but I'm going to err on the side of caution just in case there's any inference that I have an association with Melbourne Mobile Warden Scheme, which is funded by this council. Thank you. Okay, colleagues, agenda item number 3, sorry about that, which is the minutes of the last meeting. So I'm going to go through as the normal procedures. It is page 1 of our agenda. So that'd be page 1. Just sing out if there's anything. Page 2, page 3, and page 4. If I may, with your gift, on page 4, Kira, we didn't have a finish time for the meeting. Would it be possible to stick in 16:06, please? If that's okay with everybody else, that was the time we finished. I think Jonathan had a look at the video, I think, for us. Brilliant, much obliged. That's that one. Okay, here we go. This is the main event. Luke, you're on. Zero carbon communities. This is for the Zero Carbon Grant Application Awards. Over to you, Luke. Thanks.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, good morning, everybody. So this is the Zero Carbon Communities Grant, or the ZCC grant, provides funds to parish councils and community groups to run projects which reduce carbon emissions and engage communities on climate change. This report is therefore before members to present officer recommendations on the allocation of grant funding to projects that have applied to the 2022-23 round of the ZCC grant for the committee to recommend to the lead cabinet member. So a total of £120,554 is available in this round of the ZCC fund, which includes an underspend from last year of £20,554. So applications were accepted for 2 separate categories. Firstly, carbon emissions and reduction and locking up carbon category, and secondly, community engagement on climate change. And so the Grants Advisory Committee of February 22 agreed to split the available funding between these two categories and allocated 70% to carbon reduction projects and the remaining 30% to projects engaging the community on climate change. So applications to the 2022-23 fund were open between 21st of March and the 17th of June 22, and 22 applications were received in total, the summaries of which I'm sure you've seen at Appendix F in your packs, but I'll go through a summary of each shortly. So applicants could apply for from £1,500 to £15,000 per project, and the requested funding in total is £130,330,000, which, as in previous years, exceeds the total grant fund available for this round. So applications had to be assessed and scored. This was done by 2 officer panels, with 1 panel per category, and using the methodology set out in Appendix C. Scores from each officer panel were then collated and are set out in Appendix A, and this ranks the total scores from highest to lowest and shows the projects that are recommended by the officers for funding, and they're highlighted in grey. Members may recall that the Grants Advisory Committee of February 2022 recommended that £15,000 be set aside for a community climate leader training programme, and such a programme has applied to the grant scheme and has actually received the highest score in the community engagement category. And it's recommended to fund that project with the funding that was set aside, and that is the project that's highlighted yellow in Appendix A in Table 2, which is the Cambridge Carbon Footprint project. And as many of these community engagement projects score particularly well, members are also invited to consider adjusting the aforementioned sort of 70-30% split across the 2 categories, which would enable higher scoring applications overall to receive the funding. And again, that distribution, as recommended, is already set out in Appendix A with the grey highlighted projects. So I'll now just summarise each of the applications in turn. So the first category being carbon reduction, so we received 11 applications from 10 organisations, totalling £104,126 of requested funding. So scoring of these was across 3 criteria, with 33% allocated to each criteria, being projected carbon emission reductions, added value, and the lifetime impact. And they're again set out in the tables in Appendix A. So the projects so the officer's recommendation was to fund 7 of those, leaving 4 of them unfunded. And the projects with scores that are falling below the line on this occasion were, firstly, an application from the organisation Hope Against Poverty for £4,700 for a Cambodn-based project to collect surplus food from supermarkets and other outlets and make it available through an existing Cambodn community food project. While this project scored well on added value and longer term impact, it was less strong on impacts upon carbon reduction, which weren't quantifiable for this project. Secondly, there was an application by Cambridge Citizens Advice Bureau for £15,000 to fund 42 solar panels on their building. Whilst being based in Cambridge, 25% of their customers are South Cambridgeshire residents, so they were eligible for funding in this instance. Again, the panels would result in quantifiable carbon savings. However, the application did not show that any previous actions had been taken to reduce emissions from the building. There were no technical or expert sort of reports or provided in support of the application. And applications for funding had been made to the City Council, so this application just scored slightly lower overall. As you may have seen in the report, there were 2 applications received from the Malta Community Centre and Recreation Grounds, one which was for battery storage, another for an interior and exterior LED lighting system. So as only 1 project per organisation can be funded, officers have recommended the battery storage project for funding, as again that's project scored slightly higher overall and was deemed to align better with the aims of the funding. Finally, in the category of projects that weren't recommended for funding, there is the Land Beach Village Hall Charitable Trust, who requested £14,035 for a solar PV array on the roof of Land Beach Village Hall. And again, this application showed good measurable carbon savings, but no match funding was offered and there was no independent report provided. So the application scored slightly lower in the added value category. The remaining applications in the carbon savings category all provided a carbon savings and a good balance between added value and lifetime impact and are recommended for funding. These being the application from Cambodn Parish Council, who applied for £15,000 for 30 additional solar panels and a 3-phase battery system for Cambodn Village Hall. Then there was Cambodn Community Centre, who sought funding for 33 additional solar panels and a battery system, also for the sum of £15,000. As again, as mentioned previously, the other Milton Community Centre project, which requested £13,296 for a battery storage unit linked to an existing solar panel array. Followed by West Wickham Village Hall, who requested £4,000 to install 20 solar panels and battery storage to supply a heating system and an LED light system. Hardwick Parish Council, who applied for £5,292 for an e-bike rental scheme in the village, accompanied with 2 bicycle sheds. Falmere Recreation Ground of Village Hall, who sought to replace the remainder of the village hall lights with LEDs and requested £2,000 to do so. And then finally in this category, Harston Village Hall Trust, who applied to replace a rendering throughout their village hall with insulation to improve thermal efficiency, with a request for £8,956. So then moving on to the other category of projects. So they're projects with measurable community engagement.
Luke, sorry to interrupt you, my friend. Before you move on to the other section, I have a question from Councillor Lentil, if you wouldn't mind, with one of the comments you made. Thanks.
Yes, of course.
Good morning, Luke. Sorry, was the number 25 or 75% of CAB clients are in South Cambridgeshire?
Sorry, yes. So as I understand it, it's 25% of their the people they serve are in South Cambridgeshire. Yeah.
Thank you, Luke. Another one from Sue Ellington.
Sure.
Ooh, sorry, I don't think it was me. Yes, I just want to be convinced that Cambodn Parish Council and Cambodn Community Centre are not actually the same people, because I rather suspect that they are. And in which case it's 2 applications from the same people. And I don't care, but I fear that there are people who would feel that that was being over generous to Cottenham at the expense of somebody else.
As far as I know, they are not. They're different organisations. The community centre is a separate charity and run separately with volunteers, to my knowledge. So, yeah, and the parish council, I don't believe, are sort of a part of that sort of that operation as an organisation. I believe it's run separately.
Thank you. As long as you you're sure of that, then I'm happy.
Luke, just if I may, just on that basis alone, do you have the addresses for the parish council project and the community centre project? Are they different addresses?
I can find them for you. I will just go to the individual application forms. I can find them. Just give me a short moment. So the address for the Cottenham Parish Council application is the Village Hall, Recreation Ground, Lambs Lane, Cottenham, CB24 8TA, which is the address supplied on the application form. The address for the community centre is 250A High Street, Cottenham, CB24 8RZ.
Thank you. That's splendid. Thank you, Luke. If you like, carry on now. Thanks.
Thank you very much. So yeah, we were at the second category of applications for projects for measurable community engagement. So in this category, we had 10 applications totaling £86,204 requested for funding. So as mentioned previously, we are able to fund the project from Cambridge Carbon Footprint for a climate leader training programme from £15,000 set aside from the previous year's underspend. So this then leaves 9 applications totaling a requested amount of £71,204. So scoring of these again was across 3 criteria. Firstly, the community engagement impact. So effectively how many people were likely to be involved and the level of engagement. And then secondly, as with the previous category, the added value criteria and lifetime impact criteria. So the office panel recommendation is to fully fund 3 of the applications in this category and to part fund 1 application, leaving the 5 lowest scoring applications unfunded. So these 5 lowest scoring applications are an application from Oakington Primary, who requested £4,958 for education, environment and biodiversity activities. Great Shelford Parochial Charities requesting £3,462 for a tree planting project. There was Baberham Parish Council who requested £4,500 for videos documenting the forest garden project in Baberham, which was funded from an earlier round of the ZCC grant. There's then the A10 corridor cycle campaign who requested £1,353 for cycle stands in 2 locations. And then the Northstowe Horticultural Association who requested £14,000 for a composting toilet, enabling more people to access the allotments and the community garden. So as with the previous category, these are all good projects. They just didn't quite score quite so well as those that were recommended for funding. And it's also worth noting that 3 of these projects may also be eligible to apply for the Community Chest grant for up to £2,000 for biodiversity projects. So then moving to the 3 applications that were recommended for full funding, these all scored slightly higher, and these are the Cambridge Sustainable Food project, who were requesting £11,318 for a project building on existing work with food hubs in Harston and Gamlingay. There is the Shed It project, requesting £14,131 to build a mobile library of things to visit Swavesey and neighbouring villages. And then the social enterprise called Let's Cook, who requested £15,000 to train up 30 people with skills, knowledge and confidence to deliver cookery sessions with an emphasis on avoiding food waste. The next highest scoring application was from Sustainable Northstowe for projects, events and engagements around a range of sustainability issues across the next 3 years. This project lends itself to part funding, hence the officer recommendation to use the remaining funds to provide £1,551 of the requested £2,480. So as set out in paragraph 23 of the committee report, members can recommend to the lead cabinet member that funding is awarded as recommended by the officer panels and set out in Appendix A, or alternatively that funding is awarded in a different allocation. Just a final point is that members should also be aware, you probably picked it up, that there is a discrepancy between the labelling of some of the appendices between the report and the committee pack. So apologies for this error. I think the report refers to appendices B and C, but these are in the pack as C and F respectively. So yeah, apologies for that. But that's the end of the introduction and summary. So thank you for listening, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Luke. Got another one from Councillor Lentil.
Thank you, Luke. That's very comprehensive. I just want to come back to the Northstowe Horticultural Association, because the composting toilet at the allotments and community gardens, that's a site very close to Long Stanton as well. And I know because I've been to mum and baby groups there, that currently there aren't very many facilities there to encourage that kind of outdoors, you know, not quite forest school, but outdoors learning. It was a lovely group called Muddy Puddles. I liked Muddy Puddles and I miss Muddy Puddles. So I just wonder whether this isn't an instance where the application, I appreciate we don't have very much leeway, where the application hasn't actually spoken to its longer term benefits, because it makes the allotments more accessible to, what's a polite way for saying older or senior users who might find having facilities closer by more accommodating, but also for mum and baby groups. I'm disappointed. I think you've almost certainly applied the criteria spot on. I just wonder if we've got, as a committee, a little bit more leeway, maybe to put not very much.
Right. Okay. It's a good point. As all points are, this is a committee, so we talk about it. That's fine. The officers have weighted this. In that case, because Dan has raised this, Luke, would you be kind enough to go through the thought process with the Northstowe Horticultural Association application, please?
Yes, so I think part of the scoring for this application, it was done obviously across the three categories of engaging the community, additional value, and sort of lifetime impact. And I think whilst, you know, again, it's obviously a good project. I think that possibly the work done to I suppose justify the amount of engagement or the amount of outreach that was achieved possibly didn't quite meet the levels that other groups did, and therefore didn't quite score as highly. And again, there was I think against many projects managed to provide part funding or match funding, which this one didn't. So I think it was a whilst again it's a good project, it was probably just a slightly lower score in this particular case. I don't know, Chair, if with your agreement, one of my colleagues, Siobhan, was involved with the scoring of these applications. Whether Siobhan may be able to add any more at your discretion, Chair. But yeah, that's my understanding of the sort of scoring for this project.
Thanks, Luke. Well, let me just put you straight. Siobhan does not need my blessing at all, so she's more than willing to jump in anytime she likes. Please, if you have anything to add to that, Siobhan, please do.
I don't really have anything to add to that. I wasn't actually on this panel. It might be worth just asking Emma Dyer if she has anything to add, as she was. However, I mean, this is a really fundable project. It's just whether this is the fund for it, I think. And one of the things, I mean, depending on your decision on this, I mean, if you turn this one down, I feel they should be strongly encouraged to apply to the Lotteries Fund or somewhere else for this project.
Thanks,
I don't know whether Emma, you have anything. I know you were in the officer panel discussion on this one.
I think Luke summarised it pretty well with what he said. I mean, I can read out the notes that I made from the officer panel if that would help, because it's been a couple of weeks since I read this application. I said that it's a good idea to provide the toilet for those using the allotments and community garden, which would attract more people to use the amenity, but unfortunately not enough details were given on the total size of the plot, the number of allotment plots, and the benefits of the compostable toilet, how it would reduce the emissions compared to installing a traditional toilet. They hadn't made contact with the town council or district councillors or any attempt to secure part funding from elsewhere, like Luke said. So. And also we wanted to know if they were successful, could they raise the other £1,000? So there were just a few sort of queries. It just wasn't enough detail, in our opinion.
That's what I suspected. Thank you very much indeed, all three of you. And Luke, just echoing what Dan said, that was a superb whiz through. That was lovely. Thank you very much indeed. Okay, colleagues, Councillor Hanley.
Mr. Chair, I'm a keen allotmenteer myself, and I'd love to be able to support this, but I think it's probably the wrong fund. And I really do think that we should be encouraging them, as Siobhan says, to look at other sources of funding. But you know, allotments these days have got to be provided with loos, so that particularly women and children feel more comfortable there, and also, well, there are other things like water and stuff like that, which are absolutely essential these days for allotments. But it's just the wrong fund. That's all. Sorry.
Anybody else? Sorry, keep forgetting to turn my mic on. Right, okay. If there are no further questions and we don't have any...
I've got a question about Let's Cook.
Go for it.
It's not so much a question, more of an observation of Let's Cook, because there, it's page 28 of the document where they're discussing successful projects in Merseyside. Do we know when those projects were?
We can probably find out from the a quick look at the application.
Yeah, I'm looking now. Just bear with me and I'll have a look.
My argument is that, you know, during a cost of living crisis, you know, people are going to absolutely have to tighten their belts and all the rest of it. I just wonder whether that requires the kind of funding that they're looking for. My concern as somebody who always enjoys, who is a fairly decent cook, an average gardener, I worry about these sessions that they look great on paper, they make everybody feel good, but I find their looking at their numbers, I find them a little soft, if I'm honest, because this is about influencing long-term behaviour. And the question is, how is that then broadcast to the wider community, or, you know, people's kitchens, it's private kitchens and all the rest of it. This is I'm open to being, at the moment I'm a soft no, but I'm open to persuasion on this one.
Just in terms of those Merseyside projects, they aren't specifically referenced by dates within the application that I can see, although brief Google search has revealed a couple in 2018, 2019 from Let's Cook in Merseyside, but there's nothing specifically referenced in the application itself that I can find as yet.
See, that's my problem, is that it doesn't then take into account that most people have had to learn a lot more kitchen skills over lockdown, and we're in a very different situation in terms of food supply and the cost of living thing. So if this was 3 years ago, I'd be like, yeah, this is a solid project, but 15 grand is 15 grand, and I'm just not convinced that for this moment, in this period of time, this is the right application. So I'm still a soft no on that one.
Thank you very much. Right. Colleagues, other than the issues, we're going to go through this, I think, as Luke presented it. So we do the carbon emission reduction first. If it's okay with you, Luke and colleagues. So I was going to say, are there anybody voicing objections to any of the recommendations from officers with regards to Appendix A in our pack, which is the carbon emission reduction, locking up carbon grants? So the ones in grey, the one in red is the one which is a double application by the same place, so that's not happening, right, Luke?
That's correct, yeah.
I'm comfortable with Cotton ones are separate.
And the Cotton ones are two separate addresses, so that's okay.
Yep.
So as far as I'm concerned, I'm comfortable with the officers' recommendations. We've asked the questions where needed. Does anybody else have any doubts, fears, or otherwise? So in that case, would we be okay to take this as affirmation for the officer recommendation? This is the Appendix A as is. Yeah? That's an answer, yes. Okay, Luke, so the whole of the carbon emission reduction side, Appendix A, is approved as recommendations from your good selves. Turning the page to table 2, which is the community engagement on climate change. Now, you've said you can fund the Cambridge carbon footprint, if I recall.
That's right.
Yep, good. So the one that we are at the moment not in agreement with collectively would be the Let's Cook. So are we putting that one to one side for the moment? So take out of your mind the Let's Cook. Are we comfortable with the Cambridge carbon footprint, the Cambridge sustainable food, Shed It, and the sustainable Northstowe applications as they stand with the recommendations from officers? That's a yes, that's a yes, that's a yes. So those 4 are a yes, Luke and team. So the only one we now have to discuss is going to be the Let's Cook, as to whether or not we fund it, part fund it, and think about if we have anything left. I'm going to, if you don't mind, colleagues, bring in John Williams, because I would like to hear what John Williams has to say as the lead member for finance, who will be signing this off anyway. John, do you have any thoughts?
Well, I was happy with the officer's recommendation on this one. To be persuaded that that we shouldn't go ahead with that funding, but I'm obviously open-minded on this, and if the committee feel otherwise, then I'll take that into account. But at the moment, I'm minded that we should accept the officer's recommendation.
Thank you, John. Okay. Councillor Hunter. Put your mic on, mate.
I wanted to mention, I agree with Councillor Lento, and also, is it really necessary to have 30 cooks teaching people to cook when there's so much on television, when there's so much on YouTube? I mean, I didn't have a mother to cook for me. I learned it all from there. What is needed is nutritional information, which will be available on the internet, and it can be like maybe a pack and sent to people. I think you don't need to train 30 cooks to be teaching people to cook. Sorry, that's my opinion. Thank you.
Councillor Hanley.
Yeah, I take Councillor Lentil's points on this, and asking for quite a large sum. I mean, avoiding food waste is their main plank, isn't it? It's teaching people not to cook in a way that wastes food, which is laudable. But whether or not that's enough for a grant of 15 grand, I'm leaning towards Councillor Lentil's viewpoint on this.
Okay, thank you. Right. Luke, Siobhan, convince Councillor Lentil and Councillor Hanraj and Councillor Hanley whether or not this is a worthy cause. I mean, one of the things I was going to say is, have we got any experience of this particular group elsewhere in South Cambs, or is this a first-time shot?
So I personally don't have any experience of them. They are based in South Cambs. But I wonder if we could, I mean, as my understanding is, it's about actually sort of setting up clubs, and so it's kind of, it's a bit more than just the training. But I think that as Emma was there with the officer panel discussion, that if you're happy for her to provide some information there. But I mean, you know, it's absolutely, it's, you know, it is a sort of matter of opinion in a way. And so if you want to go with the other one, that's very much your right, of course.
Not at all. Emma, would you give us the benefit of your experience, please?
I thought it was a very strong application from an organisation with a proven track record across the country, like we just discussed. The thing that I think was important was there's multiple benefits, including improved physical, emotional and mental health. Obviously, the reduction in food waste, which we've just talked about, ability to cook and eat on a budget, improved self-confidence and reduced social isolation. There's lots of engagement already from the local community with child and family centres, primary schools, caring together, supporting young adult carers via focus groups, surveys and telephone communication. Lots of thought has been given to engaging with the community on the climate change. I suppose the only negative is for a project requesting this amount. They have not applied to any other organisation for part funding. So I did think it was a strong application, but yeah, and there are multiple benefits.
Thank you. Discussion, Sunita?
If somebody has to cook for the family, are they really want to go to a cookery club to learn how to cook? I mean, wouldn't that sort of be a bit tedious?
One of the things that Emma just said, which was, and we did ask Luke to give us a précis, so you could argue that would be our fault, right? But or my fault, sorry. Emma just came out with some more information with regards to the mental health side of it. So there is a different angle, which very much is the community engagement side. So that would be your only, if you like, push towards support, is the fact that extra information that Emma has just given us it's a game changer, if you like, in how you see the application. Forget whether you're being taught to cook, but it's that being brought into an environment where your mental health may be improved. Councillor Ellington.
Thanks. I must admit I felt that this was a bit of a thin-looking application, but I have a lot of time for people to learn to cook. There is an enormous amount of money and waste in people buying ready-cooked food of one sort or another and not being prepared to start from scratch in cooking vegetables and having them raw and how to prepare them so that they still taste nice. And I think it's that element that I think is important here, that it's so much easier to pop down the chippy or McDonald's or wherever, and that is where people spend an awful lot of money. I have to admit that yesterday afternoon the television was on and it was Eat Well for Less, and I was astonished at a family of 4 that were spending over £1,000 a year more because they were having takeaways 3 times a week because they couldn't be bothered to cook. When they started to cook, they found how much better that was. And so the principle of teaching people to cook for themselves and use food better, I like.
Councillor Hanley.
Sorry. Yes, I actually, thinking about it a little bit more and listening to what Councillor Ellington has just said, yes, we are in a cost of living crisis, aren't we? People are going to have to make their money go much, much further. Cooking veg and cooking meals from scratch is probably one way of saving quite a bit of money. I agree with that. So maybe this is more. There's more to this than just what the fund is for at face value. Maybe there's more to this in terms of value. So I'm now starting to move towards supporting this now, Chair. But I'm happy to listen to other views.
Thank you. Councillor Lentil.
No, it's Anita's hand up.
I beg your pardon. Councillor Hangeorge.
May I ask, how do we know how typical it is for people to substitute cooking for takeaways? I mean, it isn't what a family usually does. Cambridge is full of farms. You can get nice veg and stuff. Also, then there's the cost of the fuel required to cook. So I don't think that a typical family lives on takeaways. A takeaway is a treat, as from my point of view. Oh, sorry.
Councillor Lentil.
I mean, look, it's not that I don't like the aims of this project, it's that they're asking for £15,000 of taxpayers' money, and I'm not convinced that this is the time. I think 3 years ago, it would have been a good conversation, but I mean, to give you an example, I was in the Willingham Social Club last night, and the main conversation at the bar was how to make a chicken last for 3 meals for the family rather than 2. And whether you're better off buying the ready-cooked chicken or buying the raw chicken. There was then a very detailed conversation about whether a lemon should be involved. As someone with very strong opinions, I enjoyed that very much, listening into that conversation. And I just think this is the stuff that's going to happen organically. This is what people are going to do naturally as a response to changing social circumstance. And I think the point made earlier about there is so much TV content on how to cook. There is so much TV content on how to prepare meals as affordably as possible. I mean, when I was a student, you would not have wanted to come to dinner at my house. Tuna korma was on the menu, and it was pretty foul looking back. And it was TV that taught me first how to cook. One of the first shows I saw was called Take on the Takeaway, in which it demonstrated how you could produce the same meal as a takeaway for half a thing. And actually, that's still the Ainsley Harriet jerk chicken from that recipe. That is what I will cook for you guys if you ever come round. This is £15,000. The Northstowe proposal that we're saying we're not going to do is £14,000, and it's actually about putting real boots on the ground in an allotment, which, as Councillor Handley says, is one of the best mental health benefits you can have. My concern is this is £15,000. It's a lot of money, and I'm just not yet convinced that compared to all the other things, all the other factors that are going to shift people's behaviour, this is the most impactful bang for the buck we can reasonably expect. And I would also argue that in the same way that, look, if we're comparing apples and pears here, in terms of actual impact on people's lives, actual impact on people's relationship with food production, being out in open spaces, I don't think this particular proposal holds in terms of its aims, holds a candle to the Northstowe proposal, but we've rejected the Northstowe proposal because it doesn't actually fit what we're doing right now, which is about climate change. So, yes, I applaud the aims. I think the aims are absolutely fantastic. But as somebody who really is, pulled himself up by his apron straps, can we put it that way? I went from zero knowledge of cooking to a passable knowledge of cooking. I wouldn't have used a project like this. I can't think of many of the other families that I know on lower incomes who would be attracted to a project like this. They would far rather, look after their improvements in their own way. And I have to say, I find this slightly condescending in terms of we must top-down teach, but that's maybe just my thing. I'm afraid I'm a hardening no on this one. It's £15,000. I don't think it's delivering carbon benefit here, maybe somewhere else, maybe with outside funding, but yeah, no from me, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Right, there's only one way to solve this, and that's through the democratic process. Standby gang, right, we're going to do a show of hands if you wish. So, I think, officers, we are at an impasse. Hang on, Cecilia, please.
I don't know if it's of relevance, but do you remember that a part of the Children and Young People's grant that was granted in the last financial year that included Let's Cook? So I just wanted to note that point. It may be because of separate financial years, separate funds, there's absolutely no note. But if people were curious as to whether we had funded the organisation, I presume it is the same organisation, the same branch. It might be worth mentioning.
I had forgotten that completely.
So they've already had money?
They've had money elsewhere for a different, last year. Last year, Cecilia?
Yeah, last year, and it was very appropriate within the Children and Young People's Fund, and it was, it was well done.
So are they building on what they did last year then?
I can't comment on that because I don't know how this parallels in terms of.
That'd be a different. How were they funded last year? Remind me. Was it the same fund?
No, so it was the pilot, the one-off pilot scheme for children and young people's.
Right.
So,
Okay,
yeah, and they received. I mean, I can give you the numbers. They received about 7.5, I think it was.
What are you having a look for, Cecilia? I'll bring in John if I may.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Having heard everything, I'm of the view to continue and give the money. One aspect that you haven't considered is the effect on us in having to collect in our blue bins all the recycling from the takeaways that people eat. It's very noticeable that quite often we don't put our bin out every fortnight because we don't have enough in it, because we mainly eat our meals. We don't have takeaways, and we don't have packaged food by and large, and quite often we don't have enough in our blue bin to put it out every fortnight. And I think that's an aspect that the committee hasn't considered either, the effect on our recycling levels and the cost of that recycling if we get people to actually cook their own food and reduce the amount of wastage from that cooked food, but there's also the reduced level of recycling from the packaging that they would otherwise have thrown away if they hadn't have cooked those meals themselves. So I don't think the committee's fault of that, but I do think that this is a very important aspect that we have to tackle. I'm old enough, when I was at school, domestic science was a core subject, and kids were taught how to cook. We had cookers in the school, and people were taught how to cook from fresh food. That was a long time ago now, sort of 50 years ago, and that's been lost. Schools don't teach domestic science in that way anymore, and so people aren't taught how to cook. And I hear what you say about, oh, well, you can watch how to cook from television. Well, a lot of people, actually, I have to remind you that most young people these days don't watch television. But, my daughters don't watch television. So you're teaching to the converted most of the time, because the people who do watch television tend to be elderly people who have already been taught how to cook. So I'm very passionate about this, and I certainly do support this scheme, and whatever you say, I'm going to go and give them the money.
Right, well, look, in all, we're laughing, but in all seriousness, this is the task of this committee, is its remit is to make recommendations to the lead member for finance. So we can go through the process, which I would like to do, actually, to finish this item off. And I'm going to go to the vote. Now, we have our recommendation, whether it's a yay or a nay for this application, and we will make that recommendation to the lead member for finance, who can make the decision to support our recommendation or not, as the case may be. That will be his ultimate decision. So, with that in mind, colleagues, may I have a show of hands for support of this application as is? And those against? It looks like I have the carrying one, so I will go for support, if that's okay with you, gang. So thank you very much. So that's a 3-2 in support. John? So
John is the member, John has the vote.
So that may well take that sting out of the tail that you have wagging to the back of you. Thank you very much. Kira, can you make sure that's thank you very much. Okay, Luke. Is Luke still with us, or has he gone?
Hello, no, I'm here.
Sorry, Luke, I missed you. Right, in that case, then you've now got your answer for all of those, so we've agreed with you, eventually. Thank you very much indeed, Luke, for your... is there anything else you'd like to add, Luke? And Siobhan?
That's all. That's all from me. Thank you very much.
Can I just add a thanks to Eleanor Haynes, who actually wrote the report, and thanks very much to Luke for stepping in to present it, since actually it's Eleanor's report.
Absolutely, that was very rude of me not to mention that. So thank you very much for saving my bacon again, Siobhan. Right, so that, from all of us, thank you both very much for your time on that. Thanks. Okay, moving on. The next agenda item will be the service support grants. Now, I believe that to be Cecilia. Morning, Cecilia.
Good morning. So, would you like me to start?
Yes, please. Over to you. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is the service support grants review. We have obviously touched on this previously. I'll run you through the paper just to clarify that. So this is the review of all the grant schemes that we currently have within the service support grant scheme. And we are about to launch a new cycle from April 2023 to March 2026. And so this review is looking at 3 key areas of total funding available within the scheme, the themes against which the organisations can apply, and the criteria for the scheme. So it's the key thing is for the Grants Advisory Committee to obviously review this report and appendix and make their recommendations to our lead member for finance, how he would like to move forward with this scheme. So the main points within this cover the fact that we have a current pot sitting at 151,610, so £151,610 in the pot. And as discussed in the paper, there hasn't been any change for a number of years in terms of the amount sitting within the pot, and therefore the recommendation has been to adjust based on inflation from an average inflation rate over the last 5 years, and so the uplift would be to £167,400. Now that is the new baseline for the fund going forward over this next 3-year cycle, and consultation again with members of committee, etc., has resulted in us reviewing the themes as well. And the themes, which were previously at 8 of them, have now been reduced down to broader 6, hoping to make it a bit more streamlined and a bit more open and accessible, and incorporate one new theme. So just if we look at the table in the paper, we've moved the key new one just to mention is arts, culture and heritage, but that absorbs in planning and economic development. And we've gone through most of the others, but one of the big noticeable ones is the mental health and wellbeing is now included within that as well. So to make sure that we don't lose any of the components that existed within the previous themes, we have obviously refined the criteria and the guidance notes to explain what is acceptable within those new proposed themes. We've also got proposed funding amounts against each of those themes with an indicative allocation, which again, the committee needs to recommend whether they agree with these indicative allocations to the lead member for finance. And just to mention, to clarify for everybody, that the segment in grey at the base of that table under point 9 in the paper, the housing and homelessness budget, though it looks like it is a part financially of this pot, it sits separately within its own service budget. So just to clarify that point, but for obviously for transparency reasons, we would like to present them together because they are presented together as a grant. So just highlighting the key changes within the criteria, I believe you've all had that and had an opportunity to see the Appendix A, which all the revisions sit within, but just sort of summarising key changes, we've got obviously mental health and wellbeing with a strong focus on acknowledging and requesting applicants from the children and young people organisations. And this is because the one-off pilot that we mentioned previously, the Children and Young Persons pilot project, grant, was a one-off, and therefore we wish to open up that side of things within this service support grant going forward. Similarly, we've got independent living, but that will now include the community transport component because it promotes an aspect of independent living. Arts, culture and heritage is the new theme that we have added in, and those are the key changes. I mean, the other things still are supported. Main timescales, I think we've already covered off because that's going to be from next March, but just in terms of agreeing these revisions, the bidding round ideally would start from this September. So just being aware that that's the timeframe we're accounting for now. And then, yes, obviously, you can either review all these recommendations of the review and go forward and make that recommendation, or potentially seek alternative choices. And that summarises the report. Would you like me to go through the guidance notes? I think the only thing worth mentioning separately and doing individually is if we go to section 3 of Appendix A, the eligible theme, activities by theme, you can see obviously all the new themes as included in the table, but just we've highlighted those points underneath the activities supported of, what needs to happen, but also those key things. So for example, in mental health and wellbeing, we've highlighted the fact that it needs to be children and young people, that we're looking to support vulnerable residents, and that projects addressing mental health and wellbeing as for example, as communities emerge from COVID-19 pandemic. So those supplementary aims, if you want to call them that, have been integrated into the criteria at this point.
Cecilia, I do apologise to interrupt you, but you mentioned Appendix A.
Yes.
Whereabouts is that?
If we look in the public,
Give us
in the
a
pack.
page.
Of course, yes. So Appendix A. So if you go into your pack, it's page 37. Apologies, I was working off my one. I'm so sorry. That's not the right page for you.
Section 3, eligible activities by theme.
Yeah, exactly. So if we look under the activity supported, we've got those breakdown bullet points, which essentially are supplementary points to clarify for applying organisations to make sure they understand the remit that we're covering
Note to self, there's no reference of appendix. So we were confused.
No, you're right. So it's the draft appendix. So obviously any changes anyone wishes to add, make, suggest at this stage, we're open and very keen to receive those. But if everyone's happy with it as it is, that's also fine.
I apologise. Please carry on.
Well, no, that's fundamentally it. Those are the significant changes. Everything else has been, I mean, there's been point 4 in the eligibility criteria for applicants is just highlighting the fact that we've now included this this request to engage all applicants to join the CCVS at the point that they make their funding request or if not, to clarify as to why they have chosen not to do so. And I think those are the key changes. So everything that's in the grant in that table under section 3, and then everything else has just been tweaked to make it appropriate for, you know, the next funding round.
Thanks, Cecilia. Right. Just to remind colleagues, we've been on 2 or 3 different workshops, is it? So we've been going through this.
Yeah, 3.
3, yeah. So we've had plenty of discussion and tweak as we've gone along. Dan has just reminded me, we did in one of the workshops, I think it was the latter one actually, we talked about the percentages of allocation, how we're going to do that, if you recall, Cecilia. So
yes, that when we receive it in, that will be incorporated into the scoring matrix. Yes.
Yeah. So as people make the application, that percentage will come up then. Yeah.
And be shown on.
And be shown
to the committee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect. As long as we get that to see sight of that, that'd be lovely.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. Councillor Linton.
I'm impressed that it has come together so nicely, and that we can really encourage all of our applicants, and such clear guidance of what's required, because we should now get to a point where we get applications that we can go straight to and say, yes, thank you very much, that's acceptable, or no, that isn't acceptable, immediately. I think it's really nice paper. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So anybody else? Bill?
I agree completely in what Councillor Linton just said. Thank you.
Sunita? No. Thank you. Dan, any comment?
Yeah, I'm good.
John Williams, do you have any comments to make?
No, other than to support what others have said. I think it now makes it this makes it very enables us to have very clear criteria against which to judge people's performance, which I don't really think we had before. And I think also it recognises, it looks at the outputs rather than the operation of those of the applicants. So, for example, you know, recognising that community transport is actually all about people to overcome isolation, etc. But that can be done in other ways as apart from community transport. So no, I'm very pleased with the paper, and thank you very much, Cecilia, for your hard work on this.
Thank you, John. Yeah, I'd like to echo that for Cecilia and any other help she's had from anybody else. It's been a right pleasure actually going through the whole process. It's been beautifully explained right the way through, and any awkward questions we thought we had were easily batted away by Cecilia and the gang. So fantastic. Right, okay, colleagues. So we have 2 options. This is on page 35 of your agenda. The Grants Advisory Committee could, number 1, note the contents of the paper and make a recommendation to the lead member for finance to agree the proposed changes to the SSG, that's the Service Support Grant Scheme, as presented, or the other option, number 2, note the contents of the paper and make recommendations to the lead member of finance to agree the changes with revisions, giving details. So I am almost 100% certain we're looking at option 1. So am I looking around the room? That's a yes from all 5 of us. So that's a unanimous recommendation to you, John, to adopt this process with option 1, please. Thank you very much indeed. Yeah, and as Dan just said, big thank you to the team. Superb.
Yeah, I'll pass it on. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Thank you. Okay, right, gang. We're going to go on to the community chest funding applications. It's over to Emma. Good morning, Emma. Thank you for being here and waiting and helping out where you can.
Morning.
Yep.
Okay, so
Okay.
right, I'll crack on.
Please.
So, yep, before I go into them, I just want to mention about 2 applications that were deferred last month. The first one, Girton Cottontails Preschool. We're still waiting on some additional information, so that will now be deferred until next month. The second one was, if you remember, the Great and Little Eversden allotments, the pond project. They were requesting 1,941. We did go back to them asking what measures they were going to put in place to fence off the pond for health and safety reasons, but they got back to us since that was made, and have requested to withdraw their application with no reason given. So just so you're aware of those 2 points. Secondly, hopefully you've had time to read the appendices. Sorry, they seem to have been omitted from your packs. So hopefully I'll go through them as much detail as I can. So we've received 5 applications this month, totaling £7,497. I will go to the first one, which is Ellsworth Preschool. So this is a community interest organisation which provides childcare for 19 children aged 2 to 4 from Ellsworth and the surrounding community. So that's Boxworth, Papworth, Hilton, Knapwell and Fenstanton. The preschool holds open days, and there have been discussions to make the facilities available to users outside of the school day, for example, children's parties, meetings and classes. And what they would like is basically some of the furniture and play equipment is old, broken and beyond repair. And they've got an entirely new board of trustees and a new fundraising committee and a new preschool manager. And what they would like to do is undertake a programme of refurbishments and upgrades to the equipment. It's basically to improve the overall experience and learning opportunities for the children. It'll also help to raise the attractiveness and financial sustainability of the preschool and support life in the village more generally. So they've also got plans to improve the external play areas in the autumn, which is sort of the second part of their project, their long-term project. But this application is to provide funding to re-equip the interior of the preschool, which means that they would like some replacement furniture and kits, and to provide forest school equipment. Also, the new manager is qualified to provide forest school sessions, which is obviously a huge draw for children. It's very popular at the moment. So total costs are £1,828.69, which does include a 20% contingency to reflect price rises and unforeseen issues. £969 is being requested from the community chest for a variety of resources which are listed. Hopefully you can see those. Various things, light boxes, tough trays and things like that. And also the parish council were asked for 47%, which equates to £859 of the project costs. And this also equates to the percentage of children at the preschool who live in the village. So they worked it out on that basis. And this has now, since this report was written, has now been confirmed by the parish council. When it comes to green options, they're particularly keen to invest in new items to maximise the lifespan of the equipment, although they have regularly accepted second-hand, re-gifted items, and they also invest in second-hand equipment. And they have said that if they are successful, they're happy to review which retailers the items are sourced from, within obviously the budget above, and prioritise those retailers with the strongest sustainability criteria and ethical policies. So we have support from both Councillor Mark Howell and Councillor Peter Sandford. Over to you.
Thanks, Emma. First off, I'd like to say thank you very much to Mark Howell and Peter Sandford for their input and their support. It's excellent, as we've asked officers to make sure ward councillors are included in these. So that's fantastic. Comments, colleagues? Councillor Lentil.
Yeah, I think this is exactly the kind of grant we should be recommending to Peter, because this is going to have real world impacts. This is within a landscape of a strengthening, improving hub within the community. They're looking to engage the wider community and not just the kids who are enrolled at the thing. I think, genuinely, if every grant was as good as this, it would be fantastic. This is very strong very strong grant. And I entirely agree that newer equipment bought will last longer. So I think this is spot on. Very well done.
Lovely. Just for those, Councillor Hand has just returned to the room. We won't ask you to vote on this one, Bill, okay? Thank you very much. Councillor Anderson.
I'm very happy to support this. I think it's been well presented and clearly they've covered all the options. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Humraj.
I think it's a very good project aimed at little children who would benefit from all that they have identified, and I support it.
Thank you. In that case, colleagues, I take this as a support. As I say, Councillor Handy was out of the room at the time of the discussion, so he won't be voting, but that's unanimous for those of us who are here. Thanks. Over to you, Emma, for number 2, which is Falmere.
Yep. Falmere Recreation Ground Village Hall, built in 1982, is used by many local groups and also provides sports facilities such as junior football and cricket for the local league teams. The hall and land is vested with the Charity Commission and funds are raised through bookings for weddings, parties, children's events, business meetings and other activities. 10 years is left on the current lease and rent is charged at £1 per annum. The Village Hall Management Committee are responsible for maintaining, renovating and upgrading the Village Hall, as well as maintaining the recreation grounds. And they would like to upgrade and renovate all the toilets in the Village Halls, that's the ladies and the gents. This is a much needed total refurbishment, including new flooring, toilets themselves, cubicles and sinks for the benefit of all users for both the Rec and the Village Hall. Approval for this work is not needed from the Parish Council and the Charity Commission does not need to be informed. All that is required is an insurance that the building is maintained to good standards. So total costs for this project are £35,429.21, including VAT, and £2,000 is being requested through the community chest. Just of note, when the Management Committee renovated the existing changing rooms in 2020, the Parish Council contributed £2,000. The Parish Council also purchase, maintain, upgrade all the play equipment in Falmere, but apparently it's not in the Parish Council precept that the Rec and Village Hall receive any money from the Parish Council. The Management Committee have contacted businesses in Falmere for sponsorship and any shortfalls will come from earnings from bookings and general fundraising such as the monthly farmers market and concerts. And we have support from Councillor James Hobro. Sorry if I pronounced that right. Hobro. Over to you.
Thank you, Emma. The $64,000 elephant in the room is it's costing $35,429 and 21p. And they're asking for £2,000, which in my book leaves £33,000 and shrapnel. They don't mention, or it's not mentioned here in the report, where the other £33,000 is coming from to complete the project within this year to be able to make use of the £2,000. Do you have any information on that?
Well, they have said that they have contacted businesses. And they seem quite confident that any shortfalls can be met through the earnings from bookings and fundraising. But I can always go back and find out a little bit more. I don't know if you wanted to put maybe a caveat in there that funding is provided as long as.
I think we use the usual format if we may.
Yeah.
They need to be reminded that it's 12 months from the issue of the funds to spend, and we will need to see that it's spent. So I suppose what I would like to see is what they're going to spend £2,000 on.
Yeah.
It's not just going to be if they're going to purchase something as part of their process, then fine. But if they're just going to stick it in a pot and wait till they've got 35k to do it with, not acceptable, because there's other people who can use it here and now. Leave that one with you, Emma. Thanks.
Yeah.
So on that caveat, assuming all is the affirmative from what we just said with your good self and them, it'll be approved, yeah? If not, it'll be deferred back to the next committee meeting. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Conditional approval.
Yeah.
Otherwise a deferral.
Yeah. Cheers.
made a note of that. Yep, absolutely fine. So on to the next one, which is Cambodn Church. This began in 2000 and is a partnership of the Church of England, Baptist, United Reformed and Methodist churches. They have 130 members and provide a place where local people can worship or meet as a local community group. Cafe 19 runs from the church hall and it is a not-for-profit enterprise. It is open to anyone from and around Cambodn and provides low-cost food and drinks and a place where people can meet and chat. Customers can stay as long as they like in the cafe. For example, is normally taken advantage of by childminders and others with children. And it is also used to supply free lunches on recommendation by the food bank. So this application is for a new oven. So the current gas oven used by the cafe and the church needs replacing. It's now 18 years old, has had a lot of heavy use. It's used to prepare food for many community events, such as the remembrance services and during the open gardens. It's also used by community groups, such as the guides who access the church hall and the annex. The church ideally would like to purchase an electric oven to take advantage of renewable energy. However, they've said that quotes for electric ovens are around £3,000 in excess of the equivalent gas oven. They've said that total costs for gas oven is £2,298, which includes installation and VAT. They've also said that it's slightly more expensive than other quotes obtained, but it's from a local Cambridge company who installed the original equipment, who know how it's all set up and everything. So they've requested £2,000 from the community chest, and the church, who are not able to reclaim VAT, will meet the remaining costs if successful. The town council are happy to support the application, but under current legislation, they are not permitted to contribute funding towards faith buildings. So we have support from all three local councillors. We have Councillor Shabona Bhattacharya, Councillor Stephen Drew and Councillor Helene Leeming. Sorry, that's £2,000.
Thank you, Emma. Well, this puts us into a quandary, doesn't it? Yep. Because nor do we support church buildings, if I recall. Could you just elaborate on that one for us, Emma? Our rules and regulations, so we all
the rules, yes. Basically, if it's open to the wider community, then that has been fine in the past, and it not just for those that are members of the church, and they have stated that it is open to the wider community.
Thank you. I mean, I note from the support from the three district councillors for the ward, Shabrona mentions about the Time Bank Coffee Morning, and once the Cafe 19 is up and running, which I'm assuming is part of this whole process. So, yeah, Councillor Lemon.
I'd really like to support this application, but I'm very worried about the gas oven and the costs of running that over the long term, which is obviously this is a long-term investment. That's my real concern here, is that I can feel the shade of Councillor Haling's not wanting us to spend on gas appliances, and I'd like to see this again with an application to put in an eco-friendlier electric oven, because that's going to be more sustainable, not just in terms of the environment, but in terms of the cost of running long term. I think that the cost of gas isn't going to come down anytime soon. It's a fantastic project. It's clearly in Cambodn, it's essential that we support community projects as much as possible, but we've got to do that in a way that is environmentally and economically sustainable in the longer term. So I wonder what other members think about gas versus electric. I don't like gas ovens, by the way. I don't think they're very reliable, but that's my hobby horse.
Councillor Charles.
So I was just wondering, when renewable energy was mentioned, are they talking about having solar panels or something? I didn't understand that bit, because that the church has that. So, but I support an electric, but I don't know what they mean by using renewable energy.
I would just check with Emma, but I would imagine that the renewable energy is through their bills. Yeah. So you have a green tariff. So
Yeah.
It is, yeah.
That's good.
You can have your green tariff at home. You don't have any solar panels on your roof or a wind farm next door, but you subscribe to a company that takes their electricity from a green source. So then they...
Thank you.
Okay. I take Councillor Lentle's point with regards to the gas, but I've already explained that the electric ovens are considerably more expensive
Immediately cost.
than an electric one. What's the thoughts, gang? Support or not? Councillor Hanley?
I'm really surprised that the difference is so great between the gas and the electric oven. I mean, I've got to take the figures as being right, but you know, I mean, have they got to buy a particular kind of oven, one that's like a high volume or a large one? Because I mean, we had a damn good oven fitted recently, and it was under £2,000. So I'm slightly nervous, and you know, installing a gas oven, I mean, it's fixing them into using fossil fuels for donkey's years, and I'm not sure that's the right way to go.
Emma, is there any...
Nope.
I mean, I have experience of an all-electric kitchen in a commercial environment, and whilst I concur that some of the equipment can be pricey, like a 6-ring range with double oven will cost you around about the 4.5 to 5 grand. So that's a given. It depends what sort of, as Councillor Hanley has rightly said, what type of appliance they're looking for. If they're looking for a domestic-y type piece of kit, it won't be anywhere near that.
I'm just looking at a couple of the quotes that they provided. One of the electric ones here, it's coming at gross 5,200, which is a 6-zone induction top oven range. So it's obviously, you know, sort of commercial type thing. Obviously built to last and withstand a lot more than, say, your domestic one would. Again, so we do have a quote sort of to back that up. I'm just looking at others. So we've got that quote. Yeah, so there's a couple of quotes they've given for electrics as well. I think the other one is quite similar. 4,861 is the other one.
I have a question, Emma.
Yeah.
One of the reasons in my experience with the commercial kitchen, which I'm attached to, for not using gas was because of the extractor system that you have to have the gas safety switch off, cut-off switches, which are in the region of 3 times the cost of the cooker to install and have to be serviced twice a year. So if they're going to purchase a gas oven of that size, could you go back and ask if there is any leeway in going for the electric for obvious reasons? The only thing I'd say is if you're going to use that size oven, they're going to need a 3-phase supply because it's about a 6 kilowatt oven with electric. So that might be the other reason why they're not doing it as well, because if it's a pipe of gas or it's a new install for electric. We need some details, please, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, of course, no problem.
So essentially we'll defer that one for information till next month. Okay, next one, please.
The next one is the first of our deferred applications from Duxford Community Centre events. If you remember, this was deferred from June's Grants Advisory Committee. So basically, this is the oak tree and the plaque, if you remember, and it was deferred pending details on the long-term community care plan for the tree. The applicant, I've spoken to the applicant, they've confirmed that they have the means to ensure that the tree thrives in the long term through an external provider. They use Greenacres PGM Limited, also members of the Parish Council. They've also said that they're happy to purchase the tree around October to ensure the best chance of survival. That was brought up as well as one of the points. I've checked that on the quote, the tree size was an 80-litre pot size, which is 3.5 to 4.25 metres in height, which would be propagated and grown in the UK. And this was £528. Councillor Peter MacDonald confirmed he's in favour of the application.
Thank you, Emma. Colleagues? Yeah, we're in support of this one? Yep. That's a yes, please.
Great. Okay, on to the next one, which is, if you remember, the Cambodn Lawn Tennis Club, again deferred from last month. So we've just since, because obviously the rule about getting all local member support, we've now also, apart from Dr. Sharona Bhattacharya, we've also got Councillor Helene Leeming. She's very pleased to support the bid, which she said would be an asset to the town, and she would like to congratulate the club on their fundraising so far. Councillor Stephen Drew as well, he says that he supports the application. And the application was deferred pending details on the number of years left on the lease provided. So the lease began in 2016 when the courts were built, and there are 19 years left on the lease. That's that first bit of information. And also details of who will be the owners of the new clubhouse. Where they've said that the clubhouse will be owned by the town council, and whilst the tennis club are the leaseholders of the site, the town council are the owners of the site. And just some extra additional information that they provided, they said that in the past the cost of capital expenditure, such as the construction of the original courts and their 2 new tennis courts, was commissioned by the town council, who recovered the VAT. The club also pay a fee of £500 a year per court for the use of the tennis courts, and this money will go to the cost of court resurfacing and fencing, the fencing replacement over time. The town council will commission and make the payment for the construction of the new clubhouse, and they can recover VAT, like I said previously. So yes, it's owned by the town council, but there are, how many did I say, 19 years left on the lease, and that's £2,000 that they're requesting.
Thank you, Emma. John, I'm not sure if my alarm bell is ringing in my head for any reason or not, but if this community group is getting funding from us, yet the parish council is paying for it to reclaim the VAT, is that an okay process?
Well, it indicates that actually it's the town council that are benefiting. I have a great difficulty with this one, because for all intents and purposes, it is a town council building, town council facility that's leased to the tennis club for them to use. So I think, if it cracks like a duck and it, looks like it probably is a duck. And so I'm not happy with this. I'm sorry. I'd be pleased to hear what the committee thinks.
The reason that I raised what I just raised with you is that I think my alarm bell ringing is loud and clear. Is anybody else? I've got some nods from Sue and Bill and from Sunita. Are you nodding?
I do what I'm told.
You don't. Right, this is a democratic process. Right, so basically most of the, even including Dan, I think, are in agreement with your good self, John, that this is something which is giving us cause for concern. So I think that we are, if I'm looking around the room, we're going to reject this one. Yeah? Yep. Sunita? Yeah, is it Dan? Yep, that's a rejection, Emma, completely.
Okay, not a problem. And just one more thing, you obviously see Appendix B, the criteria and application form now includes the requirement that all local district councillors are in support before funding can be made, and all councillors are provided with full details of projects. So that's highlighted in grey in Appendix B, just
Yeah.
in case. Yeah, so that's already been changed on the application form as well.
Thank you. Brilliant. Phil was going to say something.
I just would ask that you or someone speak with the 3 members at Cambodn to explain this decision as why we've taken it. I don't mind who it is, but they need to know the reasons.
Absolutely. Is that part of the process that you would do anyway, Emma?
Not the district councillors, no, but we can do that in this instance, yes.
I'll do that then. All right.
Oh, you're happy to do that?
Yeah, I'll do it. Yeah, cheers.
Okay, that's fine.
Thanks. In that case, that's it then. Wow. Right. Thank you very much, Emma. As always.
Thank you.
Superb documentation and what have you. Sorry about the hassle of a couple of them. The alarm bells were rung, so that's it. That's what we're here for. Right then, in that case, that concludes today's meeting. The date of the next meeting will be Friday, the 26th of August of this year. Thank you very much for Cecilia, Emma, John for coming in online, and anybody else who's been here. Thank you to the officers for Dem Services for running it and taking the minutes, and for my colleagues here. That's it. Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks. My thanks as well to everyone.
Bye.
Okay. Right. See you all. Bye.
Bye-bye.